They stormed a church in Minneapolis. They screamed at kids, surrounded the pastor. Not over theology or a bad casserole at the potluck, but over ICE enforcement. And what happened next reveals something darker than most people want to admit. Well, yesterday, Greg Gutfeld saw it. He didn't preach, he didn't posture, he didn't tell you what to think. He told the truth sideways. I know, crazy, huh? Why in the world does God use comedians? Well, let's find out. So I want to let Greg do most of the talking because he already diagnosed the problem better than most politicians and pundits, maybe a few pastors. I want to show you what he saw and then point out the one thing he didn't say.
Check the mic and make sure it sounds right, boy.
This isn't about immigration. It isn't about ICE. It isn't about Trump. It is about suicidal empathy that is driven by a rescue fantasy. You have all of these young, middle-aged women going out there because they have some kind of emptiness in their lives that are going out there in this kind of rescue delusion, helping people they don't know, strangers who are guilty of crimes. How can you defend that? This is not protesters going to a church. That is a mob. The people that invented the phrase safe spaces are breaking it up, frightening kids, right? These are the people that call us fascists and they're hunting people. These are the people that claim to defend women and yet are defending men who abuse women. These are the people that call us homophobic and yet they want to out ICE guys for using, I don't know, gay sex apps. Let's be honest here. Fry's up. He's scared of these people, or else he would stand up for it. Calling it love, there's no such thing as a mob with love. Radicalization is gradual. Black Lives Matter is now bad guys matter. And now you'll defend anything. You're defending rapists. These are the people you're defending.
On what
and I'm going to go back. No. You had your chance. You brought this up. Where are the police? You know, when you have Hamas supporters and Jewish students, police make the separation. Antifa, Proud Boys, police make the separation. Pro-life and feminists, police make the separation. Somehow, that separation is not even here, even when the leaders are framing this as protesters versus persecutors, because that's part of this fantasy world that you live in, and yet they decide that they don't need cops to separate it. The ICE agents aren't supposed to deal with that. Mm-hmm. That's what the police do. So you got to ask yourself, why aren't the police there? Because it's a deliberate thing to create this spectacle.
Greg Gutfeld has been right about this from the beginning. What you're watching in Minneapolis isn't random chaos. It's cause and effect. When leaders like Mayor Fry or Governor Walz refuse to cooperate with immigration enforcement, enforcement doesn't disappear, it moves into the neighborhoods. That shift is predictable, and it creates friction. Activists fill the vacuum. Cameras capture the collision. Emotion replaces context. So the public naturally blames ICE or Trump for chaos that Mayor Fry's policies guaranteed. That's not a mistake. That's narrative engineering. And yes, ICE has a higher obligation to operate safely and professionally. That conversation matters, and we should have it. But as my parents used to say, don't be part of the problem, offer solutions. Obstruction and escalation aren't accountability, they're sabotage.
This is not an isolated thing. These rescue fantasies exist because the real power of women, which is in the roles of community, whether it's wife, mother, work, teaching, that stuff has been marginalized by our modern leftist culture that has to be replaced by activism. Your life is meaningless unless you're out there screaming in a cop's face. You have all these sad people out there in this liberation role playing, and you're egging it on. You should not be egging this on, Jessica. You know, we had this is a time for brave women. We saw the rise of the internet dad, whether it was Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Mike Rowe, Scott Adams, Joe Rogan. These are people that decided to help young men find meaning in life, whether it is through service or hard work, constructive activities. Where is the internet mom? The women who step up and show younger women out of this spiritual dead end, because it is a spiritual dead end, and how apt it is that they end up in a church screaming at people. This activism doesn't produce anything but suffering because it replaces what is truly meaningful in people's lives. And that's what I meant about the backdrop. It is not about good. It is not about the police officer. It's about how we got here and why we've talked about this over and over again, whether it was George Floyd, whether it was ICE. Whether it was the border guard with the whip, it's all the same. It's a desire to be part of this rescue fantasy because your life's so frickin' empty.
Greg calls this a spiritual dead end. He's right. Biblical compassion isn't emotional collapse, it's disciplined love. Scripture says Jesus made himself nothing and humbled himself for others. That's sacrifice with purpose, not self-erasure. We're told to weep with those who weep, but also that each one should carry their own load. Compassion without wisdom isn't love, it's enablement. That's suicidal empathy, emotion untethered from truth. The biblical alternative is redemptive empathy, compassion that seeks restoration without surrendering truth, wisdom, or responsibility. And here's where women matter. The Bible doesn't erase women, it elevates them. Esther was a queen who used courage and restraint to save her people. Deborah, she was a judge who upheld the law and led with moral clarity. Ruth was steadfast in her devotion, self-sacrificing, love, faithfulness when no one else was watching. And of course, Mary, the mother of Jesus, who showed us joy through obedience and steadfast love when others fled. None of them were driven by rage. All of them were grounded in truth. And come on, we just watched figures like Charlie Kirk challenge young men to think clearly and live responsibly. Greg is right. God is calling women to rise up with the same courage, wisdom, and clarity. Not louder, not angrier, but braver. Reject God's design, and you don't get freedom, you get confusion and protest in church, and eventually harm. That's how we got here. But here's the good news. Truth is still true. God's design still works, and courage is still contagious. The internet doesn't just need dads who will stand. It needs moms who will stand. Churches don't need louder women. They need women who won't bow. And this generation needs to see what biblical womanhood actually looks like. Not in theory, but in the fire. What say you, my friends? Is Greg Gutfeld on to something, or is it just crazy talk? If your church was invaded by protesters, what would you do? Hey, look, if you appreciate content like this that filters the noise and the chaos and the protest through the lens of God's truth, would you like and subscribe? It helps the channel grow and it helps us reach more people that want to think better about life. I'm Brian Tuttermore with today's Faith Check News. Remember, think right to live free.